something from outside of our five sense reality has an awareness of what we were doing, and they were safeguarding. They were safeguarding the reality. They were safeguarding the world. They were making sure that we didn't do anything too stupid that we couldn't come back from it. And I think this is, this is when they started reaching out, making contact with the highest levels of our government. I think the higher realms are thinking will reunify, will reconnect, will bring people together. Again, these ideas of cell phones, the internet, blockchain, AI, these are tools that were kind of given to humanity to hopefully raise consciousness, but they were just tools. So the tools are used at the level of consciousness of the being that is using the tool. They're neutral, and it was up to the consciousness of the user to decide how they were going to use it at every single level of society. Through every society that existed on the planet, they've gone through the cycles of conflict and authority, and that those conflicts aren't necessarily random. It seems that they are tied to a higher force, a cosmic cycle. So again, civilizations rise and fall with, from my perspective, the tides of energy that exists. As the solar system moves through the galactic plane, there seems to be heightened levels and then falling levels of energy, and the consciousness is raised or lowered based on these oceans. I think God, for whatever reason, is looking to experience novelty in this time period between channels, between timelines that are possible. Because again, an omnipotent, omniscient being that created everything would know every little pathway. And what it's doing, what it seems like it's doing from my perspective, is it's creating these interference patterns, which are much more difficult to predict. The interference patterns between two oscillating timelines. Evolved consciousnesses have been clamoring to come to the planet right now in this great time of, whether it's splitting, awakening, disintegrating, whatever that is, because they know that this is a novel time to be alive, that there's so many different things, changes, chaos, craziness that is going on in the world that invites a novel experience for advanced souls to experience.
Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show, because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you.
Welcome everyone back to another fascinating episode of Changing the Channel. I am doing a unique show this week. I haven't done this in a while, but really it's just I'd say a state of the union for where I am right now, what's going on in my mind, how I believe the world is shifting, what makes up my understanding of the world and where we are right now, so that maybe you can expand your understanding of the world. And again, I just want to make sure to fully reiterate that this is just beliefs in evolution. These are not facts. These are not, 100% truth at this point. This is just where I am, the ideas about where I'm at. And yeah, I'm not saying this is doctrine. I'm not saying that this is something that you should 100% put your belief behind, but if it sparks something in you, if it's like, man, that sounds kind of interesting, do some research, look into it, find out about anything that resonates with you. And that way you can continue to expand your aperture, because at the end, all kind of explain and bring it all back into where we are, why we're going through this, and what it means for each one as an individual, as well as this collective experience that we're going through. So this is just a exploration of what's on my consciousness right now. So where I want to start is back around World War II. Again, we just went through World War I. We go through Great Depression, economic collapse. Some people believe that economic collapse was done on purpose. Some people believe that it was done, it just happened. It was the misuse of debt, too much runaway economic freedom, free markets build up all this pent-up demand, they explode, and then they come back down. And basically, when people are chasing returns based not on fundamental metrics, but based on, if I buy it now, somebody will pay more for it later mentality, that's how bubbles form. That's how we go through these big economic booms and busts. But again, we go through that, and then we get into World War II. And again, I think what seems to be the case to me, again, not 100% founded on, I wasn't there, I wasn't in the meeting rooms, but what seems to be the case is that oftentimes in the past, in human history, in this iteration of human history, wars have been a great way to rebuild economics, to kind of reinvigorate a production economy. And then typically it's funded by debt. That a lot of times the wars are funded by debt, which leads to, again, this kind of inflationary experience in the economy. But that inflationary experience doesn't come for 20 or 30 or 40 years. So you get this huge maximization of benefit in the short term, and then the next generation basically has to pay for all the benefits of that short term boost in the economy. Of course, the goal is to, as you're developing, you get economies of scale, and hopefully you'll be able to scale economically so that you're not putting the entire weight of that debt on the next generation. But again, it all kind of plays out. And you could argue that it has worked well, that we've been able to advance technology to keep up with the debt, to keep up with the debt services. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. That's more of an economics. So end of World War II or post World War II, we just used the atomic bomb. And around the atomic bomb, both tests and then when we dropped on Japan, the two that we dropped on Japan, there seems to be this increase in abnormal activities around these spaces where we were detonating and testing nuclear bombs. A lot of people say that is extraterrestrial, interdimensional. Again, I think we're arguing semantics. Something from outside of our five sense reality has an awareness of what we were doing, and they were safeguarding. They were safeguarding the reality. They were safeguarding the world. They were making sure that we didn't do anything too stupid, that we couldn't come back from it. And I think this is, this is when they started reaching out, making contact with the highest levels of our government. It just, there's so much evidence right now that is coming out that between the CIA, Department of Defense, a lot of these kind of three-letter agencies, that they've had this ability to connect with, to contact with, communicate with these non-physical beings, these beings from either the future or the past, and that in that way they've been able to build, develop, and understand these new technologies that I think the higher realms are thinking will reunify, will reconnect, will bring people together. Again, these ideas of cell phones, the internet, blockchain, AI, these are tools that were kind of given to humanity to hopefully raise consciousness, but they were just tools. So the tools are used at the level of consciousness of the being that is using the tool. They're neutral. And it was up to the consciousness of the user to decide how they were going to use it. So lower thinking, lower level, lower consciousness beings use them for deceit and theft and stealing and all these kind of negative aspects, where a lot of higher consciousness beings were using them to disseminate more information, to educate people, to bring people into a new realm of understanding who they are, what they are, how to heal, all these different opportunities that comes with the democratization of information. And this is where, we kind of go into technology isn't necessarily the problem. It's just a mirror showing us how unified or fractured we truly are. So these tools are showing that deep inside of us, there's this echo of what could be and what has been. So I think this is in like the self-development world. You talk a lot about creating the future based on the past, that when you're running patterns, when you're unconscious of those patterns that you're running, you're creating the future experiences that you're inviting into using information from past experiences that you live. And those past experiences could be from this lifetime or past lifetimes, again, generations of trauma that can be healed during this time.
The journey to finding myself started with a shift in how I viewed my health. That is why I am proud to partner with Purium, the transformation company. What if you could support your health with a system designed for today's challenges? Purium is more than a supplement company. It's a solution for regenerative health. Their whole food products include the only clinically proven glyphosate detox, helping you eliminate the toxic buildup caused by modern farming. Pair that with Beyond Organic superfoods and the most efficient source of protein on the planet, and you've got a powerhouse combination to build muscle, improve digestion, and fuel your energy levels, all while promoting deeper sleep. Plus, Purium is mission-driven with planetary health in mind. They're proud to lead the way in a plastic-free movement using biodegradable packaging as much as possible. True health freedom starts here. Experience the power of this regenerative healing system for yourself and witness your own transformation take place. You get 60 days to try it, and if you truly don't feel any benefit, you get fully refunded. I have personally been using the daily Core 4 products and have noticed an increase in my energy and the depth of my sleep. Use the link in the descriptions to get started today and receive at least $50 off your first order over $75.
These are the two kind of pathways that we can do. And in our DNA, in our memory, in our remembrance, we have this memory of this past experience where war, where power, where domination were the main themes of how the world worked. At every single level of society, through every society that existed on the planet, they've gone through these cycles of conflict and authority, and that those conflicts aren't necessarily random. They go, they ebb, they flow. You've got these, Ray Dalio talks about these, 400-year cycles of hegemony. The single power in the world has this very typical arc that it goes through, where it has this massive rise. It becomes the hegemony, the ruling society of the world, and then at the top it's kind of flatlining, and eventually that each hegemony under its own weight and power and authority ends up collapsing itself. And again, it doesn't seem that these cycles are random. it seems that they are tied to a higher force, a cosmic cycle. So again, civilizations rise and fall with, from my perspective, the tides of energy that exist, just like the moons shift. Just like our moods shift with the tides of the moon. So we have, high energy during the full moon, low energy during the new moon. This is very similar to that idea that these civilizations are going through rises and falls based on not the moon cycle, but the cycle of our solar system. So, Earth's consciousness seems to move in these epochs. They talk about them in the Vedas with the the great year and the 4 different cycles: the bronze, silver, gold, and there's one more, but they're yugas in the native language. These Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, these are great periods of energetic rise and fall that we seem to go through. And almost every civilization, historical civilization, has this concept, whether it's astrological, based on where the stars are in the sky. Again, astrology is just it's like a clock. You don't, when the hands are pointing at 10 and 2, you can tell where you are in a revolution around, or the Earth's revolution around itself. Just as you can tell when certain stars are in a certain location, when they line up, again, you can talk about, the significance of some of the ancient structures and how they align with specific stars or patterns of stars at certain specific times, whether that's in the annual cycle or a much larger cycle, multiple years, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. All you're doing is trying to understand where you are on this energetic level. Is the energy moving up or is the energy moving down? On the annual level, are we moving into winter or are we moving into summer? And that's what these astrological structures, these structures where, again, the there's a pinhole in the structure, and only on one day out of the year or 2 days out of the year does the sun shine directly to the back of that building. And when that sun shines directly to the back of the building, that means we're at fall equinox, spring equinox, something along those lines. So as the solar system moves through the galactic plane, there seems to be heightened levels and then falling levels of energy, and the consciousness is raised or lowered based on these, completely has nothing to do with humans necessarily. It's just the amount of light and consciousness and energy that's available to each one. So the current shift is more astrological and spiritual than anything else. We're aligning closer to the galactic plane where there's an increased energetic frequency. And these interdimensional beings, I think, understand these cycles, and they intervene in key moments to help us influence, or to help influence, the planetary evolution. They understand, because time is not necessarily linear, time is kind of a quantum aspect of reality. The more civilized we can make this transition, or we'll get into kind of the split of consciousness, but the more humans that follow a reintegration versus a disintegration pathway, the better their society, which exists either in a future or parallel reality, depending on how you understand time, does. And it's just like the when you're doing, let's say, shadow work, and you go back to that period of time when you're a child and that major trauma happened, and you go back and actually experience that trauma and help guide that child who is lost and has nobody to understand what they went through. You go back, you know, kind of experience that. You go back in your memory and re-experience that, so that the memory of the child propagates. Instead of it being that broken child that had the trauma and had nobody to understand it, they understand it from their future perspective. This is what these beings, these interdimensional beings, are doing. They're coming back into the past expressions of themselves. You could say that we are, you know, we will eventually evolve into them, or you could just say that because everything is interconnected, because we have this interconnectedness across all time and space, we are, you know, quantumly connected, that the better that every civilization in the universe or galaxy or solar system does, you know, it propagates out across the realms in an almost instantaneous way. So these interdimensional beings, they came back, they, you know, maybe they didn't do their homework or realize how corrupted the control structures of the planet were at the time that they came back. But obviously they went back and they said, who do you talk to? Let's say you're making connection to a new planet. Like, who do you talk to? Oh, you talk to the people who are in charge, the ones that um, we were democratically electing to run the United States, which clearly was the hegemony at the time. So they were interacting with those beings. And I don't think they realized for a number of years who and what they were interacting with, or if they were interacting with positive beings that were for integration, for a collective coming together. Eventually that information found its way into beings that were not necessarily interested in that integration and were more interested in disintegration of the human experience. For whatever reason, all this wisdom and knowledge seemed to get sucked into what we'd call the declassified areas of our government. So that's kind of where we are and where we were, is that we have these incredibly intelligent beings that are coming to share information with us on how to be, how to evolve, how to change during this time of heightened energetic experience on the planet. And for whatever reason, there's a group of beings that don't want that to happen. This is, you know, kind of the negation of our divinity. And I think this is an interesting quote, is that maybe what we call divine intervention is just advanced consciousness stepping in when the timing is right. So again, what we're viewing as, and because a majority, and I would say a super majority of humans have had this understanding that spirituality goes through organized religion, that organized religion has the authority to decide what's true, what's not, and that angels, you know, those are the beings that communicate with us, because that's what we are taught about this spiritual understanding. That's the story that we build when these, you know, advanced consciousnesses are making their connection with us. And I experienced that on a very personal level. I had a background, you know, in Roman Catholicism. That's how I was raised until I was 16 years old, going to church every Sunday. I was altar boy in the choir, went through CCD, got confirmed, First Holy Communion, everything. And when I first started having this communication or making these connections with some kind of intelligence, I didn't know what it was. It made sense that, oh, these are angels, these are, you know, some kind of angelic beings. And I don't think that's false necessarily, but I think we just build stories around what those beings are, what those things are. So that brings us to about where we are today. And I think where we are is this kind of splitting of consciousness. I think these energetic, these higher level beings understand that there's eventually when a civilization is torn between two paths, one path being a reunification of God, a reintegration of our divinity, of our unity, a remembering of our divine source. And the other path is this separation from God, this disintegration, a fragmentation, kind of the egoic control, understanding that I am separate from God instead of I am a divine being of God. When those two paths begin to gain enough momentum, they actually split, they go apart. And this is what I was referring to, these higher level, higher consciousness beings, these more integrated beings understand that the more humans that they can move into the pathway of reintegration of our divinity, of our knowingness of what we actually are, not these limited physical beings, but eternal intelligences that are experiencing reality for the benefit of the creator, of God, of the universe, whatever that might be, that it ends up creating better futures, better parallel universes, better experiences for those individuals that take that path. And then the more beings that take the disintegration path, well, that just leads to, again, disintegration, chaos, fragmentation, this disunification of the human species. So basically, we each have a choice. We get to decide, do I want to move towards this reintegration, or do I want to disintegrate from the pathway that I've been on? And we each get to choose. And I don't think that there's a positive or a negative pathway. I don't think one is better than the other. And I really love this idea. It's basically, you can kind of imagine these two pathways as stations, and you're tuning into one or the other. But right now, you're stuck in between both of them. We're kind of stuck in between. You could experience one path or the other path. And essentially, where your awareness, where your focus, where your attention is put, that's the path that you choose. So if you're choosing to find all the different ways that humans are disintegrating themselves from a harmonious world, you are moving, you're feeding that channel with your energy. And that is most likely the experience that you're going to follow, that's going to become real for you. So decide, do I want to put energy into the disintegration, this idea? And again, so many humans have this wonderful idea that we have to go through this total chaos, that we have to go through this. And again, I speak that because that was me. That honestly still is a little bit me. Like, I still have this belief that there has to be a bit of a fire that goes through society for people to start to wake up to their true divinity, to see through that very foggy, dense belief systems, the strong belief systems that they have. So we're kind of like basically in between these two radio stations, and our ego, our personal experience is picking up on both chaos and harmony. But our soul is meant to decide which signal to amplify, and that's where you put your attention. That's where you put your focus, is which one you want to build. And again, I mentioned it before, but I don't think there's a right or a wrong pathway. I think the universe has created free will, and that free will allows us to either integrate or disintegrate. And the disintegration path is just as powerful of a teacher as the integration path. There's two ways to learn. You can learn through suffering, or you can learn through intuition. The reintegration is learning through intuition, feeling, knowing the future a future is possible, that you believe in this future and you're able to draw it in, draw it closer. And the disintegration is the belief that, there's no reason to go that way, that you need to be moving away from integration because that's the pathway forward. We need to disintegrate before this reintegration happens. And again, both are fine, both work. Um, you know, from my perspective, life is infinite. There's an infinite number of ways you can experience life. You will have life after life after life after life. And you build up what most people call karma. If on that disintegration path, it's like you build up all these negative experiences, all these pain and suffering that you cause as you disintegrate from this harmonious being. And then the karmic lessons that you learn are, oh, wow, what I was disintegrating from was actually what was holding me together. And that's that karmic lesson that you learn, is that as far as you want to go into the disintegration path, you will have lesson after lesson that you learn on that reintegration path. So I think reality itself may be the interference pattern between timelines, this divine experimentation in motion. I think God, for whatever reason, is looking to experience novelty in this time period between channels, between timelines that are possible. Because again, an omnipotent, omniscient being that created everything would know every little pathway. And what it's doing, what it seems like it's doing from my perspective, is it's creating these interference patterns, which are much more difficult to predict, the interference patterns between two oscillating timelines. If you've ever seen like double slit experiment, when there's wave patterns that are moving through the double slits, it goes from a very very compact pattern of a single wave emanating from a single point. When it goes through those slits, it breaks up into this multitude of what looks like kind of chaotic energy. And those interference patterns are where God, where the universe really relishes in novelty. It's like the only way to create novelty is to shake things up a little bit. And we get to be a part of that. So maybe God's only desire is to experience itself in every possible form. This goes back to the Hermetic understanding, Kabbalah, all the way back to the Vedas. That God created the world to experience itself from a different perspective. And in doing so, it wants to experience not only awakening, but also confusion, and everything in between, all the different things. So just don't take it personally. Don't take where you are, where the world is, personally. Can you live in this experienced world and know that we are moving towards a better place? Know that there is an integration pathway that you can choose, and you can move towards that anytime you want, based on the energy and the attention that you put on the world. Where are you moving towards? Is that disintegration or reintegration? Are you moving towards community or a lack of community? And you get to decide. So as we come into kind of the last point here, I think it's very important to understand that this is one of the most exciting times to be alive. If you've ever listened to maybe Dolores Cannon or somebody talking about star seeds, so many star seeds, so many evolved consciousnesses have been clamoring to come to the planet right now in this great time of, whether it's splitting, awakening, disintegrating, whatever that is, because they know that this is a novel time to be alive, that there's so many different things, changes, chaos, craziness that is going on in the world that it invites a novel experience for advanced souls to experience. And again, I think what we need to do is just let go of the fear. Let go of the fear of the unknown. Heal your past so you're not building a future based on the past, and consciously tune your frequency to the world that you want to experience, that you want to live in. Like, put more energy into the world that you want to live in versus the world that you've experienced in the past, or the world that you see on television or on the internet or on news or on wherever you're seeing what the external world is doing. And to build that faith and trust in a higher intelligence, to understand that humans have the ability to tune into this higher intelligence, but we are not always going to make the right decision. We have a huge amount of free will that we are capable of, and that free will is a reason that we come here. But because of that free will, we have an opportunity to choose the disintegration path, to follow a disintegration path because it looks like the right path. It looks like the path towards light, towards integration. And can you discern the difference between the false path and the true path back to your integration? And one way to do that is through the heart. Does this light up your heart? Does this make you feel like you are joyful and peaceful and loving? Or does that pathway make you feel like something or someone is less than, not as good as, worse than you? And again, the higher intelligence, it can be anything. It's really just the story that you tell yourself. Are you communicating with your higher self, or an external guide, a universal consciousness, an extraterrestrial, an interdimensional being, a inner world being, fairies? It really doesn't matter. What are the intelligences? What are they telling you? And what is the experience when you have that experience with them? Again, the whole focus is to continue to expand the aperture of your belief. Invite experiences that don't fit this old paradigm. Invite experiences that are brand new, that are novel, that are, you've never experienced in your life. When you open your mind and heart to what's beyond your current perception, life begins to really reveal just how multidimensional it's always been. It's fascinating to really understand that. So I invite you to just sit for just a moment at the end of this podcast, or let's just sit right now for maybe 2 minutes and really just let go. See and feel what resonated with you, what you want to go explore, but don't do it from the head. Let's tune into the heart and really feel what you want to experience. So as long as you're not driving, as long as you're in a place that is safe, just go ahead and gently close your eyes. Just take a nice, deep, long breath in through the nose, filling all the way up to the top. And just gently let that breath fall out through the nose until you're all the way empty. And do that one more time, just filling up as deep a breath as you've taken all day. Gently let that breath out. And just see if you can find a little space between your thoughts. Notice if any particular idea resonated with you from the show. See if that thought pops into your head right now. Remember that idea and then just let it go. See what else pops into your head. Maybe it feels like you're downloading some information. You're revisiting your past, possibly. Or maybe you're diving deep down a rabbit hole of thought that you've had before, that you've researched before, that you know there's something deeper. Gently just start to come back from those thoughts. Let those thoughts go. As you come back to the body, come back into the hands, the feet, stretching them out. Bringing back a little movement to the neck, the shoulders. Eventually blinking back open the eyes and allowing yourself to really take in some of these ideas. Again, not as doctrine, but as guides, as opportunities to research what is true for you. And if you made it this far and you want to support me, I'd love to hear what you think about the episode. So wherever you're watching this, leave a note, leave a comment below, shoot me an email, joe@joegarner.net. Would love to hear from you. Would love to even just get your reflection on what is happening. Where are we? What felt true and what felt false to you? I'm always open to changing my perspective. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.